I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Good, good. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Coach. I am sorry if I'm a little bit late, but on a Saturday, um,
Yes.
because it's a Saturday. I love sport and it's football, so there you go. Anyway, good afternoon. Okay, I have got Athea Finger on. Hello, Athea. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I tell you what I want to do is I want to ask you a couple of questions, but because we looked into, we were talking about Batman and everything, in the comics last, and tell everybody what it was your granddad, wasn't it? Tell everybody you know, uh, about about how you got involved in this too, because apparently, was it you were the kind of like youngest, and so you thought you better take over from where your granddad left off by getting his name out there?
Well, my sister and I actually have different fathers, and
Right,
Bill was on my father's side of the family. So when my father passed away in 92, the responsibility of pursuing credit fell upon me since I was the last living relative. Um, I mean, my son is, but at the time he was very little, so he couldn't do anything. Um, and when my dad passed away, I was a teenager, so that's one of the reasons why it took so long for me to pursue the credit for my grandfather.
mm, yeah. Because the trouble is, so when your family are well, it could be anybody's family when they're kind of like creating something which Bill did really really fantastically well. You know, then all of a sudden to kind of keep it going and keep it going. When Bill left, I bet it was really hard sometimes. Because everybody what it is like, probably comics of his signed comics. What was it like when people were kind of like trying to kind of like get a piece of the action, say?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question. Um, can you say
Yeah,
it
what
again,
was it
please?
like when? Yeah, yeah, sorry. What was it like when Bill, passed away and everything, and all of a
Um,
sudden everybody was like,
well, I mean, I never met my grandfather. He passed away a couple years before I was born. So when he was at the end of his life, he was in a pretty bad way. He wasn't making very much money. He was actually being threatened of being kicked out of his apartment. He was living alone at the time. Um, and my father was living in California at the time. So when he passed away, he came back to New York and, you know, did what you're supposed to do when your parent passes away, deal with all of the not so fun stuff. And he did go through Bill's apartment and put stuff together. He had a gimmick book that he would use with ideas and little clippings and just his gimmick books where he got ideas and share ideas with other writers and artists and stuff. So he took that and some other excuse me, some other scripts that had not been completed and some other stuff, some other, my dad thought they were significant for him to take over to the DC office. And so when he took the stuff over, unfortunately, this was in 1974, they did not foresee the actual value of what my father was bringing to them. And they didn't want it. And so my father did not have any place for it. So it unfortunately got thrown away. So it's not like there was a scramble to fight over things. anything that was really of value had already been sold off over the years to help, deal with living expenses. He wasn't making much money towards the end. And as he got older, DC stopped giving him work on Batman. He had to find work in other avenues, other mediums. That's when he got into writing for TV and radio and writing movies and exploring these other avenues of entertainment writing other than just comic book writing. Although that's really where he shined. I mean, he wrote for comics up until he passed away.
Mm,
So,
mm.
it's unfortunate. It really is. And I wasn't around at the time, so I didn't have a say. And um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Who was his first superhero that he did? It was Batman, wasn't it?
Batman was the first superhero that he wrote for, which then carried over into him co-creating the Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and also Wildcat.
Yeah, yeah. I used to like Wildcat. That was funny. That was funny. And um, and the trouble is, though, what do you feel like today when you got to kind of like do interviews? Well, you don't have to. When you do interviews, like getting people keep on, asking questions and bringing up the past. What do you think? Do you think that Do you feel um, happy? Do you feel like that this is what you want to do? Is get the story out there about Bill?
Um, I was a little hesitant in the beginning because I didn't know about the Batman like comics per se because I didn't really read comics. I didn't grow up reading comics. Um, I was really into like the animated series and um, obviously the movies and the TV show and things like that. So, and Super Friends and other Batman mediums. So I was a little leery of like being asked about the comics per se because I'm not educated about the comics because I don't read them. So that was my big concern is that some Uber fan, which are awesome, I love the fans, and I'm so glad that I did take the chance to come out and really get to know the people that have supported the character for 80 plus years now, and so
Yeah.
I was concerned that the Uber fan was going to be let down that the granddaughter of the writer doesn't know the stories.
because because Batman came around because of he was inspired by Lee Fawkes, the Phantom when they did the
Right.
Phantom.
And the Shadow and Zorro and a lot of even Sherlock Holmes had a big part of it, and that's that whole detective aspect to the characters. So they were, building these characters off of what was popular for them and what they would liked as kids and what fascinated them as far as like, why am I reading this? Oh, because it's super interesting, or I like the
Yeah,
fact that they're solving a mystery, whatever component it was. And that's really where they were pulling a lot of this from, for the
yeah,
influences that they've had in their lives.
yeah. I was intrigued how Bill got Bruce's name from what was it? Robert the Bruce.
I believe he was looking at different kind of noble names and came up with the name. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, he was big on research and having true meaning behind why he did things. So, I think Bruce was of some noble family, and then Wayne in some way was connected to Bob Kane to give him some homage. I don't know. There's been a lot of stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, there was a rumor going around that Bob Kane stole Batman from Bill. Was that true or not?
That Bob what?
Stolen Batman from Bill.
stole it from Bill. It's not necessarily stolen. As history it has been told, um, that Bob already had a relationship with National Comics, which is now DC,
Yeah.
and wanted to kind of cash in on the Superman excitement. And so he, said, I'll come up with a character if you're willing to pay me. So they agreed on, him coming up with a fresh superhero. And so without him having that first initial concept, I don't think that it's fair to say that he stole it from Bill, because he took a concept and took it to Bill, and Bill molded it into something else.
Mm.
So without that initial spark, which I don't like to take away from Bob, because he did have the initial spark, he just didn't know how to make that spark a flame until he really started collaborating with my grandfather. So,
Yeah.
it's as far as like the stolen aspect, it's the credit, it's the recognition, it's the acknowledgement of Bill's role in the creation, which really didn't happen until Bob's bio, which was kind of forced for him to tell the truth by Tom Andrea, who is ghostwriter. Um, so, Bob really wanted to hold on to this idea that it was all him and that nobody really else had any role in the Batman story. Um, but
Right.
people knew the truth. People knew that wasn't really what the creation of this character was. Jerry Robinson was a big part of that. Also, he was a ghost artist for Bob Kane, and in the early '40s, and helped come up with the Joker and the look for Robin, and all of these really iconic visuals that we have for the character, because he was an artist.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
so I mean, so that's where I think that they're really saying stolen is the credit, the recognition, the acknowledgement.
Okay. Okay. Um,
I know that
what
was
did you
long
think of
winded.
documentary? Because they did a documentary, didn't they? Sorry, I missed that.
I said I know that was long winded.
Long-winded, right? Okay. So are you trying to tell me, don't bother?
It's okay.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah, you're telling me what a load of rubbish, didn't you?
I'm sorry, you
Ain't
cut
you?
out. You have a strange connection. You keep cutting out on me.
Yeah, no, I know. Let me ask the question again. Uh,
Okay.
what did you think of the, Bill's documentary?
Of the Batman and Bill documentary?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think it's a great documentary. I think it, really focuses on how the research was able to bring the truth to the mainstream, and how it was able to bring the family to, myself, to come to some kind of resolution with the matter. Um, I had not approached it in 15 years after my father had passed away. And so, I was kind of put in a position where it was like, okay, you kind of need to make a decision on whether you're going to pursue it or not. So Mark had a big part of that. Mark Tyler Nolan is the
yeah, yeah,
gentleman who did all the research and wrote the book. Um, which there are other books out there, a lot of them a little more fictionalized and
yeah.
more accurate, but they're great books. And there's one in Spain,
Are
there's one
you telling
in
me?
Brazil.
Are you telling me the documentary wasn't really accurate in what they were showing, or
It was mainly focused with the research aspect of finding out who Bill was and what he did for Batman, because it was not known. I mean, there's very little physical stuff of Bill out there. There's very few
Mm.
photographs, there's very few friends left, there's very few colleagues left, there's just very little, because we're talking, 1930s through the 70s of when, he was working on comics.
Mm.
Um, so it was a challenge to find people and to find information about somebody who was pretty private with his life, because he was too busy writing stories, right? When you're
Yeah.
too busy doing stuff, you can't really leave very much behind other than your story, which he did. I mean, I've had many people say to me, I recognize a Finger story right away when I'm reading comics. There's certain things he does with his writing that gives him a particular style. So it's things like that, you know, that Mark was able to tap into, and then along the way find the family and help aid in resolving the issue of getting Bill the proper credit and recognition that he deserved. So, I mean, it's a great documentary. I cry every time I see it. Now that both of my parents have passed on, it's a little like, oh, it's my mom and dad. I get to see and hear them a little bit. So it's nice. It's a great human story, even if you're not into comics. It's just, overcoming a wrong that took 76 years to get right.
Because yeah, because I was shocked because before Bill did all that, he was a he was a part time. He had a part time job, did he? As a shoe salesman. Is that right?
Yeah, he was not, and he was estranged from his family because he refused to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever his family wanted him to do. He wanted to be a writer. And so he kind of had to find his way. And he got very fortunate that he knew mutual friends of Bob's. I mean, Bob gave him an outlet to write and tell stories. I mean, that's significant, I think. I mean, without the connection between the two of them going to the same high school and again having mutual friends and meeting at a mutual party, and just like the way all the little stepping stones brought them to, all right, now we have this spark. How are we going to make this into something so that we can both, continue doing what we're passionate about? Because you got to remember, these men were in their 20s. They were young. They were trying to figure it out. The war is going on. It's not safe for Jewish men. They were just trying to make their way as a creator. And I understand that. It's not easy. You're kind of fighting the grain when you're a creator because people want you to conform to a certain thing. So again,
Yeah.
without Bob, there would no be opportunity for Bill. And I don't like to take away from that. But again, the documentary mainly focuses on Bill's aspect of his contributions to the comic world, particularly Batman, of course. Um, but some family stuff were in there. My son, myself, my sister, um, my mom, and my dad, like I said. So, and other family members are in it. So, it's a great story. Again, just a good human story.
And also, Bill never craved publicity, didn't he? He didn't want that, did he? Really, he didn't want the publicity, did he?
He
Is that
did. He
right?
wrote a couple sci-fi movies. He wrote for TV. He did write a two-part episode for the 1960s Batman show. He wrote for Sunset Strip. He wrote for a lot of different out. Like I said,
Yeah, but he
he
didn't
needed
want
the
the
work
fame, though,
to
did he?
live and survive. So
Yeah, but
he did it where he could get the paycheck.
yeah, I mean, by the way of being in the spotlight, being kind of like he didn't want to be famous, did he? Or he didn't crave
I
for
don't
the
think necessarily he was striving for fame. I think he was more striving for respect with his colleagues and within the industry. I think it was more about that and leaving, good stories. I think that's really what he was
Mm,
consumed by, is his storytelling. I think that's really what, because I mean, it got in the way of relationships along with other, quirky things that people have that get in the way of life. Um,
yeah,
but I think that that was really his main focus, was just telling good stories. And part of that, he got a reputation of being late with his work and things like that, but that was because he was meticulous and he really was a man of his craft.
yeah, yeah. And also, because you did kind of like try to go to Warner Boss and get the credit actually for him, didn't you? For the Batman.
They did. They tried to get him some kind of recognition in the 1989 movie, but of course they declined. They didn't want to open up any kind of avenue for legality issues. So they were respectively, declined to add his name to the movie credits.
Because you
But
challenged Warner Bros. You challenged Warner Bros. To credit him, as a
I did.
co-creator of
Well, I
Batman.
mean, we started our case in 2012, pretty much, and we're able to get this resolved. I mean, again, timing had a big time, factor in this. With new people running the company who were fans and were are artists of these characters and things like that. I think there was a little bit more of a willing to come to a conclusion. I think also with Jack Kirby running, getting his win for all of his contributions, also was a huge factor to getting the Bill Finger credit resolved, because I mean they both did significant things within the comic industry during their time and were totally like pushed out of any kind of recognition, which is very sad.
If Bill was alive today and he all of a sudden turned on the television and he looked at all the cartoons or the comic books, you know, what do you think he would do? What do you think he would say?
I think he would be kind of um, probably in awe of like how his original concept had branched off into so many different avenues, especially with like now having multiple Earths and multiverse concepts going on, and having multiple storylines going on at the same time with different versions of the Batman and with the Harley and the. I think he would be really fascinated with the Harley character, because that character was created for the animated series, so that's a brand new one. As there's other brand new ones I know, but that one's resonated with the fans uh, quite intensely. Um, I think more so than the Joker at times. And
Mm,
I think even so more recently with her super uber popularity that's going on with her, which I mean, that's going to happen. But she was a beloved character even in the 90s with the, the animated series, and with her getting her own comic book. So I think that he would really be awe of what his main idea has kind of like sparked all of this other creativity and storytelling. I think he would really be impressed by that, and maybe a little overwhelmed. I mean, there's a lot of Batman everywhere. And it's a constant reminder everywhere it goes. So I mean, depending on, if you're talking pre-credit or post-credit. I mean, pre-credit Batman hard for me. I was working on a
yeah,
college campus and I would see Batman everywhere, and I'm like, oh god, there he is again. Like, why does he have to be in my face all the time? And then after the resolution, it was like, oh, it's so cool to see it everywhere. And yeah, it's a different emotion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, How did he survive then? I don't know if you know, but how did he survive through the war then?
How did how did he
How
survive
did Bill? Yeah, how did Bill survive through the war?
through the? Well, I mean, he was writing. He was right. He was working for Bob. He was. He didn't.
Yeah,
He changed his first name, and he, he didn't.
because he was
Obviously, he was
because
concerned because he was a Jewish man. But I mean, I
that's what I
think
was
because
just about to
he was
say.
working
Yeah,
with
yeah,
no Jewish
yeah.
man, selling those funny papers, I think he felt kind of safe. I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
speak.
because I was thinking because he was a Jewish man, I thought he would be, you know, he would have been targeted by, the SSS or whatever they are, the Madlock.
Um,
And
well, I mean, living in New York City, I mean, there was a huge Jewish population in New York City, anyways. So, I mean, I think it was more of a concern as a culture, more so than a concern with your physical safety at the time.
yeah, 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 brilliant, really good, really good. Before I go, who's your hero?
Who's my hero?
Yeah, who is your
That's
hero?
um. I mean, I've had some amazing people in my life. Um, And if at one time I did consider my mentor to be my hero. I mean, my life has taken a little bit of a turn. She's my best friend now, so it's not like it's gone down or anything, nothing negative. That sounded so bad. No, she's an amazing woman, but like when I first started getting into teaching, she was my superhero. She was my everything. She was my rock. She was my person that I would turn to for advice. She helped me get my job. She helped me like in so many different ways that, she really was my superhero. You know, people change. We change roles. Now she's just my best friend.
Okay, and this I promise you, this is the last one. If Bill was alive today, and you went over to him and said, "Can you put me into a film? I want to be one of your characters." What would you like? What character would you like to be?
I only caught half of that question. So what character would I create?
No, no,
Or-
right, okay. If Bill was alive today,
Oh,
what character? And you went up to Bill and said, "I want to be in one of your films or comics." What character would you like to be?
oh, what character would I like to be if Bill was making a character for a
Yeah,
comic? Right?
yeah,
Is that what you're asking? I want to make sure I understand the question.
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
If he was going to put me into a comic, I hope it would be somebody that was kind of influential to people learning. I'm an educator, so that's kind of like what I always go to. Is I always want to see people like expanding their minds and things like that. So maybe one of Bruce's teachers or one somebody who works for the city that's an advocate for kids or something like that. I don't know. That's a good question.
You
I haven't
don't
really
know.
thought about that.
Yeah, see, there you go. See, all these questions I get for you. Anthea, thank you so much for joining me today. And sorry about all the questions and thing about.
Well, that's
And
the point
thank
of
you
us
so much.
having a conversation.
That's what it is. Yeah, yeah. You never know. I might have some more next time. I've got lots to cover. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthea. Thank you. Bye bye.